Hey guys, I'm out looking for some owls right now. It may seem a little counterintuitive to you that I'm spending so much time looking at the ground when looking for owls. Obviously I'm looking up in the trees as well, but a lot of my attention right now is focused on the ground. I did another video a few months ago where I got out with a great gray owl, and I go into a little bit more detail in that video about why I spend so much time focused on the ground. Super fun trip. Go check it out if you haven't already. But I'm gonna keep going. Let's see what we can find. So something else that I'm looking for when I look for this species of owl that I'm looking for today, it's a very specific species that I'll get into in a little bit, but something else I'm looking for is in the trees some sort of little hidden recessed cranny or nook or a tree hole, something like that. Something where a little tiny owl could take a nap for the day and rest and safely do so. So that's something that I'm keeping an eye out for today as I look for this little owl. Alright guys, I think it's time that I introduce you to the owl that I'm pretty confident is in this tree hole and that I'm hoping to photograph later today. It's a Western Screech Owl. This is a species of owl that is so much fun to photograph. They are so pretty, but I don't get to photograph them often. They can be pretty tricky to find, and another reason that they are hard to photograph is because they are primarily nocturnal. So this owl, again, I'm pretty confident he's in this tree hole based on the whitewash that's at the base of the tree and the owl pellets. It's very fresh, and it wasn't here the other day when I checked on this tree hole, so I'm pretty confident that I've got an owl in there. And so what I'm hoping is going to happen is that he's going to come out later tonight, and I'm hoping to be able to photograph him. Western Screech Owls are primarily nocturnal. That's the other reason that they can be very tricky to photograph and see. Unlike, great gray owls or northern pygmy owls that are active during the day and you can get out during the day and photograph, Western Screech Owls aren't like that. During the day they're primarily holed up in a tree in a little nook somewhere, and they're resting, and then they'll come out at night. So the method that I'll be photographing this guy later this evening is a little bit different than you would do with the other owls. So let me go into that a little bit just so I can explain right now without bugging the owl tonight, doing a lot of talking and stuff. Let me explain how I'll be photographing this guy, again hoping that he comes out and that he's actually here. So the setup that I've got on my camera right now is a little bit different. I've got this little remote sensor that I've put on my camera, and I've got the trigger right here. So when this owl starts to come out tonight, I'm not going to have that much light to work with. So any shake, anything on the camera, if I'm pushing the shutter button with my finger, it's going to be shaking the camera. So I want to eliminate all shake from the camera. That's the reason I'll be using this trigger tonight. So I'll be able to take pictures by just pushing the button here without touching the camera at all. If you don't have a trigger or something like this, that's okay. You don't necessarily need one. What you can do on your camera is set a timer on it, like a 2-second timer, something like that. Something that gives you enough time to focus, push the shutter button, get your hand off, and have the camera quit shaking, and then it'll take its picture. And so that's something that you can do on your camera as well. Another thing to keep in mind, because I'll be photographing this guy when there's not much light to work with, your shutter speeds are going to be a lot lower than they normally are, but it's not likely that I'll be taking a bunch of flight shots of this guy. He's going to come out of his hole. He'll probably sit there for a little while, so I'll be able to get some pictures of him in his tree hole, which is always so much fun. And then when it gets really dark, he's going to come out and he'll probably sit on a branch somewhere and survey the area. At least this has been my experience in the past, observing these guys. He'll come out on a branch and he'll survey the area, and I might be able to get some portrait pictures of him there on that branch. So again, my goal in photographing this owl is I want to eliminate as much camera shake, any movement as possible. So some other things that you can do in order to achieve that is actually turn your image stabilization off. Where your camera is mounted to a tripod, you shouldn't need it anyways, and depending on the lens or the camera body that you're using, if you've got your image stabilization on while it's mounted to a tripod, that can actually introduce a little bit of camera shake or lens shake, and so you want to turn it off. So depending on the light that I have to work with tonight, it could be incredibly dark when I photograph this guy. I photographed them at 1/15th of a second before, and that's pretty dang slow for wildlife, and it's just because you don't have a whole lot of light to work with. So one thing that you may need to do as well is you may reach a point where you need to start manually focusing for your images. It may be too dark for your camera to be able to autofocus anymore. Again, the four things rather, that I've got going on here that will give me an absolutely still, no shake image is I've got my camera mounted on a tripod. I've got a trigger that I can take pictures, a remote trigger that I can take pictures with. I may be manually focusing, and I've got my image stabilization turned off. Doing this, I'm hoping to be able to achieve an absolutely still picture on my end tonight, because again, my shutter speeds are going to be so incredibly low if this guy comes out of his hole, and I'm hoping that he holds still enough where I can be able to get a sharp image. Now, if you're lucky and you're able to find a Western Screech Owl and you want to get your pictures of him, there's a couple things that you need to keep in mind just out of respect for the owl. That is the most important thing. You need to respect this owl. He's out here to just survive, and he'll be coming out at night to hunt, so there's a couple things to keep in mind. First thing, and it may seem absurd to you, but I've heard of people actually trying to get the owl out of its little nook or its little hole earlier in the day to be able to get pictures of it. Whether it's tossing things at it or tapping an owl box or a tree or whatever. I've heard of people trying to do that just so they can get their picture. How incredibly disrespectful that is for that owl. He's just trying to survive out here. So please, if you're tempted at all to do that, please don't. It's incredibly disrespectful to that animal. And if you see anybody trying to do that, please let them know that it's harmful for that owl. It's not in its best interest, and there are other methods, like I'm showing you here, to be able to get pictures of that owl on its own time when he comes out of his hole. So please just respect that owl. The other thing that I wanted to mention is it can be incredibly tempting to use a flash or a spotlight when photographing this owl to increase your light and be able to get your image that way. The whole purpose of me showing you this setup right now is so that you won't have to do that. If you just think about what happens if you're in the dark and somebody shines a light in your eyes, just think about what that does to your eyes. It temporarily blinds you. And then think about what this owl is out here doing at this time of day when he comes out. He's out here to hunt. He's out here to get food to just survive. So if you're using a flash or if you're using a spotlight on that owl, it's temporarily blinding him. It's essentially making him unable to be able to see his prey that he's out here hunting, and it's disrupting his behavior, his activity. An owl's eyes are extremely sensitive. They're able to see in conditions that humans cannot. Their eyes are just extremely sensitive, and if you're flashing, flashes repeatedly at him, or a spotlight or something like that, just think about the effects that could have on his ability to hunt, the effects that has on his eyes. So please reconsider using a flash or a spotlight or something. And again, the purpose of this video is to be able to show you guys a technique to be able to photograph these guys and be able to get some decent images without affecting him negatively in any way. Owls are extremely fun to photograph. I love spending time with owls. They're my favorite group of birds to photograph, and they are just so much fun. And I hope this video has given you some ideas of some methods that you can use to be able to get some pretty fun photographs of a species of owl that is incredibly difficult to photograph. So again, I'm going to come back here tonight. Hopefully he's in that hole, hopefully he comes out, and hopefully I'll be able to put into practice what I've described to you this morning and shown you. I'm really hoping he's in here, and so yeah, I'll check back in with you tonight and hopefully put into practice these methods and be able to show you some results, some pictures, just putting these methods into practice. So I'm going to take off for the day now and just leave the area, leave it quiet, so if he is in there he can get a good sleep and come out tonight, and hopefully we'll have some fun with him tonight. What an amazing time I had with that little Western Screech Owl. It got dark so fast that I wasn't able to say goodnight to you guys. Just after sunset, he poked his little head out of his hole, looked around for a little bit, and then when it got really dark, he flew down to some branches, gave me some great opportunities for some pictures and some video footage. I made it all the way down to 1/4 of a second on my shutter speed and was able to get some pretty crisp images using the method that I described in this video. Please always remember, you guys, the needs of the animal should always outweigh the desire for the perfect picture. Always put the animal first, be respectful, and you'll have a much better experience, and I guarantee the animal will as well. Have a great week, you guys, and we'll see you next time.